as I put this in the water, as I light this fire, please help to alchemize this pattern. I know it's all energy, so please help us to be free, not just for me, for the future descendants, for all of my family, forwards and backwards, rippling out. May it be so. That whole idea of like collapsing time and space is that as I experience it, the realm of ceremony and ritual is outside of space and time, where it can feel like being in a ceremony, even if it's technically an hour, can feel like a whole year just went by.
Welcome to Holistic Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Luam Fessehazion, and today I have the lovely Liv Wheeler, who is a spiritual teacher, author, documentarian, owner of Earth's Amulet. Welcome to the show, Liv.
Thank you, Luam. It's good to meet you. It's good to be here with you all.
Glad to have you here. I guess give us a little background on what inspired you to start your spiritual journey, if there was any specific catalyst moments.
Yeah, let's see. What started my spiritual journey was around probably age 18 or 19 when my grandma passed away. And after she transitioned to the other side, she started communicating with me. I wasn't aware, I didn't have any awareness or training in spirit communication or communication with the ancestors at that time. And so I just recognized it as a kind of a sense from inside of myself to understand, who am I? Why am I here? Um, what is this? These kinds of questions that I guess are kind of indicators of a spiritual awakening to a
Mhm.
deeper nature of who we are. So that voice of my grandma, Beverly, I greet her now, that started me on this kind of like a quest, maybe that I'm on. I continue to be on this quest. So yeah, it was that. So that was many years ago by now.
Okay. Was it a auditory thing? And when you do connect, do you hear it in a different voice, or I'm just curious?
Yeah. Yeah, at that time it was coming through like a sensation or a feeling that was
Mhm.
rising from my heart. And I didn't have enough awareness in my sensitivity to know the kind of distinctions of the different ways that spirit communicates.
Mhm.
So at that time it was a feeling, like I just had this feeling, it was coming through, yeah, the heart space of who am I? Do I know
Mhm.
who I am? It was almost like this question, do I know who I am? And and then it continued to develop through the development of my journey. And at this point, there's more kind of distinctions to it. Now it is, crystallized into auditory and feeling and seeing and the different kind of that are referred to as the clairs, clairsentience and claircognizance and all of those clair omnipotent, omnipotent, all the clairs.
Yeah, I think I had a similar situation. And so it is kind of interesting hearing you describe it because initially I felt like it was more of a feeling. But then over time, I feel like I can kind of see in my mind's eye who, who is communicating and um, hear it a little bit better. So that is interesting how it develops into multisensory communication.
Okay, if I ask you a question about that,
Yeah.
I'm curious, how long ago was it?
I would say probably a little over a year ago
Ah,
when it was more of like feeling. I think I'm more claircognizant. I really never talked about it with anyone before.
Yeah, that's what I want
But so
definition.
I'm a more of a feeler, but over time, um, I feel like I can kind of see with my mind's eye, not necessarily with my eyes. So I don't know how to describe that, who it is that is communicating.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually don't even know who it is. It just seems like a more of like a grandmother figure.
Mm.
Um, and I didn't know my grandmother, so it's kind of hard to tell on both sides of my family. So, um, yeah, so it just kind of developed from that. And I've had other experiences throughout the year, and I'm having to kind of learn and develop on my own what that means. And I feel like I'm being guided in a way to kind of figure out what my unique gifts are. I know some people feel like only certain people are gifted with certain things, but I'm under the belief of we all have special, unique gifts.
Absolutely.
And it's up to us to kind of figure out what that is.
Yeah, I
Uh,
fully agree with you. Yeah, I feel that too. And that's incredible that it's only been in the past year because I experience you as very spiritually developed. So that's why I was like, wait a minute, did you say a year ago?
Well, okay, that part. I mean, there's been other experiences and developments. I think since I was a kid it was that way, but over time you go through things um that kind of dampen these things, whether it's conditioning, societal conditioning, or fear, or all these other things, traumas, and all of that. That kind of dampens um, your awareness to these things. And I would say about 7 or 8 years ago, I started to learn about spirituality. And then over time, I felt like the more I learn, the more things, once I understand a certain concept, I feel like I get guidance to develop, to new knowledge that I wasn't aware of. So it's kind of been a progression over the last 8 years, but I feel like in the last 2 years, it kind of got amplified from just learning about things and hearing it from other people to actually being put into situations that helped me put it to action. It was almost like my guides were saying, okay, you've learned enough. Let's put all of these things to test. And I went through a series of situations that made me aware of all of because I feel like when you're going through things, that's when everything gets activated as a protection mechanism, kind of help you, protect yourself in a way.
Yeah, it becomes very practical.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've experienced that as well. Yeah, in certain kinds of challenging circumstances that out of a sheer need and then calling on those spiritual gifts. I need, there's my soul was calling out to it. I need this now. It's like calling it in from
Yeah.
the putting like that too, because in my experience, it feels like here we are in the physical, and then beyond that, I believe that, yeah, as the spiritual dimensions, what's referred to as like the higher planes and the higher planes of consciousness. And yeah, out of a sheer need, we're calling upon our spiritual will, this being a free will culture, earth culture,
Yeah.
well, earth culture. And yeah, and then it can actualize just like that. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful to hear about your experience.
Do you feel like there are, I know you've worked with a lot of people in ancestral healing and other modalities. I What do you feel like is the common things that block people from connecting to their ancestors or to their inner wisdom?
Um, Blocking from their ancestors. Well, I'll go there. What's blocking people from connecting with their ancestors? I feel like it's a lot of times it's fear, and also, you know, many of us, I mean, I've worked in the realm of ancestral healing for probably 20 years, and so I've delved into these spaces, but for sure it can feel really daunting. It can feel really daunting when especially when we feel that maybe our ancestors did atrocious things, or committed some kinds of atrocities, or even when we've been violated by our ancestors, sometimes directly. Being a grandparent could have violated the grandchild, or being the living one, or the mother. And there's been so much trauma, I think, in people's ancestries, all all around the world. I mean, I'll speak about that from sitting with people in different cultures. Yeah, everybody has ancestors that are connected with them. I mean, I'm not making light of the situation. I'm just saying this is what I've experienced from sitting with people. I don't make assumptions, but I sit with them. I'm speaking from direct experience, sitting with people from different cultures. Then yeah, I see that a lot of times it can feel really daunting, because of either we sense or we know things that our ancestors have done that we feel ashamed about, feeling on in some way like a representative of theirs, or uh, or sometimes people have been directly violated by, again, what we could refer to as an ancestor, could have been a grandparent, and that some kind of physical, sexual trauma, some kind of abuse gets passed down. And so the person might feel like they're getting the sense, they're getting the the inclination, the message from their ancestors, that their ancestors are wanting to connect, and yet they're associating all of their ancestors as one conglomerate. And whatever the fear of that feeling is why would I want to connect with that thing that I feel ashamed of, that I feel scared of? It could hurt me. All of these reasons, because it all gets clumped into one. Just like um, a woman could have a series of relationships with men that have felt harmful, abusive, that they've been hurt in, and it all gets subconsciously clumped into one. The subconscious says men are violators, men are perpetrators, men are not to be trusted, and you're not consciously aware of that. And in your consciousness, you might be feeling, I don't understand, why can't I get in a relationship, or why are my relationships not good? Because until that's resolved, then there's this, I'm pointing to the back of my head because that's where I imagine subconscious, unconscious.
Mm.
It's the hidden, it's the occulted, it's hidden.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, and that, I think that happens with the ancestors too, where there are people that are really feeling the strong message from their ancestors through dreams, through feelings, through premonitions, through all kinds of ways. But there's the fear of, you know, but but what if I do? Or what if I am like my ancestors? Or what if, where we can get to when we actually are able to face it, and to go through the healing or the transmutation of those emotions, mostly emotions, experiences. Then there's there's all of these blessings there. There's gifts, like what you spoke about, gifts. I believe that
Mm.
too. All of us have gifts. We have gifts in our own soul that we can um, find through the process of self-healing, or going through our inner development. and also um, our ancestors pass on gifts to us, and as we heal these relations with our ancestors, then also they pass on wisdom streams. So it becomes not only an intuition stream, a GPS, a GPS, but also it's like course correction.
Yeah.
But also it's an endless stream of wisdom and knowledge and so many things, you know?
Yeah. It's funny you said GPS because that's one of the ways I've explained it to someone,
Okay, I was
is
wondering where that was coming from.
yeah, because some people, maybe they're not spiritually inclined or interested or don't understand it. Um, so, they kind of ask, why would you even want to connect? Like, what's the whole point of this? And I feel like um, whether it's ancestors or other entities, your higher self, they're in a higher level plane where there is no separation or connected to all that is. And I feel like that's a better guidance system, almost like a GPS to kind of lead you into a straighter path versus going through all the ups and downs that you might go through when you don't have that guidance system.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, of course, it's a free will um
Yeah.
earth, and so people can choose whatever they choose. And also, yeah, I feel like it's a matter of also it's just kind of like going into the deeper understanding or understanding of who are we, and what are we made of? What are we made of? Sometimes, for some reason, it keeps coming up when I'm talking to you as like the quest or the question, who are we? What are we made of? And sometimes just putting that question out to the universe, to our higher soul, or however one conceptualizes of that, then all of these maybe synchronicities and seemingly like random occurrences can happen. And we may have the direct experience that, wait a minute, how is this happening? How is this feeling so magical? There must be more to this than meets the eye. And those things that the human experience becomes much more compelling. I find it really fascinating to connect with the different ancestors and guides and guardians, and to feel that, as a lot of people love to learn, um, and there's endless learning there. I've been learning with them for a while, and I will continue, while I'm alive in this lifetime, I will continue learning from them. And as AI and chat GPT and all these different devices are available, I find them interesting. And also I find it fascinating too, that we naturally, in our natural inherent birthright, are connected in these ways, that we have the capacity to have the endless streams of um, data and knowledge.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I think AI, it's funny you should mention AI. I feel like it's just replicating what humans are doing. It's like tapping into that, all that is. And that's essentially what it's doing with the 3D realm. So,
I feel that too.
yeah. Do you feel like when you heal any ancestral wounds, it can have a ripple effect to everyone in the family tree as well as your ancestors that you inherited the wounds from?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've experienced that, and I've supported others in ancestral healing through the years, and have heard their stories also. It's really beautiful, because a lot of people can feel really despondent or heartbroken about feeling like they really want to have a good relations in their family. Our family being so and naturally important to us, and it can feel really stressful, really stressful when we feel like we just don't know how to have a kind of healthy or what's considered like a functional, functional in contrast to dysfunctional connection. And that's exactly what I found is, yeah, to be specific, let's say my dad, he passed away many years ago by now, and he, um, I made sure to go through different practices to support his soul's well-being, to help his soul to be a healthy ancestor, basically, is one way to say it. And my dad is a healthy ancestor is so different than my dad was on this side. And my dad as a healthy being on the other side helps me to even appreciate all of the things that I experienced as him being challenging, really challenging in ways on this side. And him being healthy now on the other side, it helps me to appreciate his life when he was alive in the physical world, and to see his positive qualities and to appreciate him, and seeing he passed on courage to me. I know he did. And I went through this series again of like making sure that his soul is healthy and well, which in intact traditions they would, or they do around the earth, do that. When somebody dies, they make sure they have ways to make sure that that soul is healthy. Um, but him being on the other side, yeah, he guides me, and he guides me in different ways, and they all have particular realms of knowledge also from their experience on this side. And a lot of times the very thing that they were, let's say, destructive about on this side, when they make that complete transition, they're it's to the positive. So let's say they were physically abusive on this side, and then on the other side, once they've gone through their life review and once they've gone through their healing, then they might be especially wanting to be supportive in ways of bringing about peace and bringing about support for others, maybe that have been physically abused. And but naturally, as that soul heals, then there's a natural, yeah, exactly what you just said, a ripple effect that happens. I've witnessed it so many times, and it ripples into the family, the descendants. And if you picture it like a tree, like they say, a family tree, it's interesting, it's referred to as a tree, and that tree has roots. So there's different ways we can see it. We can see that we are also the roots here, connecting with the earth, you know? Um, and so that the different waters on the branches, and it's going into the roots. Again, we can see it in this kind of way, as we are the roots here, connecting with the physical earth, and this very earth that all of our ancestors, they all walked this earth, you know what I mean? And so here we are
Yeah.
without that same earth body, and it does, and the branches get healthier, and that health comes into the health of the family. Yeah, for sure, it brings about a strong ripple effect.
I know when you first get started, it can be a bit overwhelming, especially if you haven't had knowledge of the things that you're going through. How do you begin to trust your intuition and trust your abilities um, enough to even help others? Are you getting guidance on how to do that, or is there a process of you developing that trust between yourself and your abilities?
Yeah, I feel like you ask really great questions, and important questions. Is kind of getting right to the heart of it, is that yeah, exactly. I feel like it starts there. It starts with one's um that's the starting point, is trust in self. And so if there's not trust in self, somehow that trust in self got broken. because I imagine a baby coming into the world or a child, well, if you observe them, there would be indications that they trust themselves because they're actively exploring and they're doing things without questioning it. They're just in the experience. I'm picturing a baby starting to move around, or these things. There's trust there, inherent trust. And so if there's a lack of trust of self, okay, so there's likely a reason for that. And to go about it in some kind of healing, healing one's connection with um trusting and believing in the self, like I'm getting this feeling, uh because so often what happens is the spirit, you could say, taps them, the ancestor, the guide or guardian, and the person says, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm making that up. Oh, that was probably my imagination.
Mm.
That's so common.
Yeah.
And let's say right now, here I'm in Bali, and this is common in different places that I've traveled that, let's say, have more intact spiritual traditions. When I was
Mm.
in Burkina Faso in West Africa, in Bali, and in many different places I've been to in India, in Cambodia, let's say different people that I'll speak to there. And if I'm with them even, and they get a message from spirit and it appears, let's say, like chills on their arm.
Mm.
And everybody, I've noticed, maybe everybody gets that. And somehow it's like, ooh, something's happening. Well, here, when I'm with Balinese friends and that happens, they trust it. If something happens and I see they hold up their arm and they know that there's something real happening because they can see it physically, spirit is communicating with them. That's that chill. Um, Whereas in other places or with other people, they might have that experience and they say, just brush it off. Something tells
Yeah.
them, wait, something's communicating with me, but then they say they choose to override the experience. Um,
Yeah.
And so yeah, you could go about it, I would say, either in doing some kind of practice. It could be anything from therapy um to some kind of like energy work or a self-practice where you're actively choosing to kind of write new code, I guess is some way people speak about it. You're
Mm.
putting coding into your subconscious. And so the automatic default is I trust myself. And then when
Mm.
I trust myself to know when I'm having an experience, I'm trusting my intuition about what that is.
Mm. As you're traveling through different parts of the world and picking up on different cultures and rituals, uh, are there any that you resonated with that you incorporate into your practice?
Um, well, I mean, I definitely say my longtime teacher, who I honor, who's now on the other side, Malama Somé, um, in this lifetime, my experience, the start of my experience with ritual and ceremony was really with Maladoma. And that was in 2005 that I started studying with him, and I studied with him, or I worked with him for 8 years. So I studied with him, I went through a 3-year training, and then he would continue to ask me to come back to support the students, the next students, the next students. And I went to Burkina Faso, West Africa. Maladoma is an elder. Again, he's on the other side now, but he's an elder of the Dagara tribe of Burkina Faso, West Africa. And so when I was guided to study with Maladoma, it was more of a, it started a remembering, it activated remembering in my being.
Mm.
Remembering meaning what it means that there's something that lives inside of me that's getting activated, maybe in the DNA or something. And it was confirmed when I would sit with Meldema and divination, essentially that he had received guidance that I would come there, and that um what who I was as a soul, and what I was to do in this world. Uh and I imagine we planned that before incarnating. And
Mm.
and so so I know he would say that he was supporting me and he supported so many souls in the act of remembering. And so on the surface, you could say he was teaching me these, or us, these different rituals and ceremonies, and it was activating a remembering in my being. And so let's say if it was a ritual or a ceremony to connect with a tree or the ancestors or the earth or all of these, that it ultimately woke up something inside of myself that helped me to remember. There's something so universal about this. So it's almost like remembering the universal language of ritual and ceremony, that um, there was something got activated, and I believe that's what he would say, that's what he knew that he was there to do with others, is to activate the remembering.
Mm,
So so it's not, at first it can be a ritual prescription, but then it's your soul, our souls know inherently, I believe, the language of ritual and ceremony. It's what we all come from, I believe. And so and to some person, they might say, well, this is symbolism. Well, I believe it's more than symbolism. It's more than symbolic. There's energetics to it. There's what Maladama would say, it's like a spiritual technology also,
mm,
that it's deep and connects to source, or it is of source. And so it ultimately awoken this remembering in my being of ways to um, understand some foundational elements that are helpful to have in place for protection, for safety, and then also to understand that there are there a tree ceremony. Okay, there are trees everywhere. There are
mm.
trees everywhere. You know, water ritual, water ceremony. There's water everywhere, all around the earth, meaning it's universal. There's universal, it's universal, I believe, for us to enter into this sacred, we could call it like a sacred communion with the beings of the natural world, so that we may heal, um, uh, become wiser, uh, grow together, grow in our symbiotic relationship,
Mm.
because we can sit with a river or a lake or some body of water, and we can receive from it, and we can really love the experience, and it can be, um, feel really healing and uplifting. That's physical to physical and energy too, but there are ways that we can actively, intentionally, consciously connect in a way that we're coming with offerings. We're coming with an offering. So we're not just coming receiving, but we're also coming as a generous being. We're remembering our nature, because nature is inherently generous, isn't it? I mean, I feel it is.
Yeah.
It's inherently, the apple tree is giving us apple. It's built into the design of nature. And so we, as in our human being, are receiving from nature all the time. We're receiving from the oxygen of the trees. And so we remember our nature, coming from the ancestor tree, and that we can come bearing fruits,
Mm.
as here's us in our human being. We come bearing fruit, saying thank you, thank you for this, thank you for this blessing of life. Just thank you, you're so inspiring, thank you, and coming in these ways, and then maybe offering a simple song and doing, before we started recording, I was offering songs to spirit and just saying thank you, connecting in communion, and then something happens, some shift happens that is really, really glorious. It feels glorious.
When you're helping people through ancestral healing, what does the process look like exactly? And what kind of things can you help them with?
Um, with ancestral healing, Yeah, there are
or
different.
any other healing practices that you have.
Yeah. Well, let's say, for example, maybe we can we can play together. So if you, let's say, for example, if there's something you say, I have this situation, what's possible with healing? And let me just see what kind of comes in. If you want to, it can be a fictitious situation or a real situation.
Mm, I don't know. I'm going blank. Um,
Because it can be relational, meaning mother and daughter, it can be all kinds of ways, and we're just kind of playing and seeing in the fluidity of what comes through. I could say my intuition or the ways I'm getting guided by spirit, and see what they say, because you could say in a sense this is a shamanic approach.
I guess as an example, we can use patterns that gets passed down from like these generational things, habits, thought processes, mindsets that get passed down, and you see it repeating over and over again throughout the family, and you want to be able to change that within yourself and help with the ripple effect of it affecting everyone else.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, obviously it wouldn't be beautiful to experience probably, but
Everything happens for a reason, right?
so, yeah, true. So, okay, so here's the way I'm being guided. Okay, so let's say, for example, somebody has an ancestor altar. What is an ancestor altar? It can be something as simple as a candle, a place where you're honoring your loved ones who have passed on that, and you can even specify, I'm connecting with my enlightened ancestors that are here for my highest good. And have a photo of them or no photo, either way is fine. And okay, so maybe a candle, maybe you could, do you write poetry?
No,
Oh, that's interesting because they said a poem, and so I was like, does she write poetry? Um, for sure you don't?
I like to write, so I don't know if it's poetry. I like to write more than I speak, so I don't know. Maybe that's something I need to get into.
That's so interesting because when they said poetry, I was like, wait a minute, this feels like it's for her. But okay, so let's say something simple. So we'll go simple. So there's a candle, um, you know, a glass of water, there's some flowers, maybe there's a little meal that you prepared, you put a little food there for them, and saying, I'm connecting with my enlightened ancestors that are here for my highest good. And you can just talk to them, trusting that they're listening, they're always able to hear us. And when we're choosing to connect with them and saying, you can just talk to them telepathically in your mind or out loud if you're comfortable doing it like that. And then so what they're showing is they're showing something like a bowl of water, and then you could even draw it just as you were saying, like these patterns, this
Mm,
pattern. And so um this is a way that Maladama guided me and guided many too, is essentially to speak just very honestly to them, very honestly. And in contrast to feeling like you've just got to show up in a certain way and you can only have a certain emotional tone or something, but just speaking honestly. And even if you're feeling exasperated or overwhelmed or something, and just so you can imagine this is an example, there's a bowl of water there, and you have this that you just let yourself be kind of intuitive with. You've drawn something that's representing a pattern, and you're going to them, to the ones again enlightened, they're well, they're healthy, and saying, ancestors, I'm so tired of this pattern. It feels sometimes like I'm a hamster on a wheel and I can't get off, and I'm just going round and round and round. And it's so painful to experience and to feel so gripped by this, to feel like I can't get out of it. And it's involving people that I love so deeply, but we're being cruel to each other. And I don't like to be cruel to people that I love, and I don't like the feeling of people that I love being cruel to me. Please, ancestors, help us to liberate from this pattern. You know, this is talking to the ancestors, you know a way through. I know you do. You birthed all of us into creation. I'm sure you can see from the other side. Please help us to liberate from this pattern. Please help us to be free, to liberate. And there's a feeling, there's a sense that I have that we're here to become fully sovereign, fully liberated. Please help us. And as I put this pattern, let's say it's on a piece of paper, as I put this, or it could be you're lighting it on fire, as I put this in the water, as I light this fire, please help to alchemize this pattern. I know it's all energy. So please help us to be free, not just for me, for the future descendants, for all of my family, forwards and backwards, rippling out. May it be so. Something like that.
Yeah. And I think it's like you mentioned before, this is a universe of free will,
Yeah,
and they can't help you unless you specifically put the intention out there to connect and you're allowing them to connect. They can't really help you.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. And you can imagine from their perspective, they're all sitting around people, the ancestors and their guides and guardians, and they're like, are they gonna ask us now? They
Yeah,
see,
there's
they,
rules.
they see us on this side, just like going crazy and
Yeah.
I-
Like we can help you, we just need
yeah,
the clearance.
yeah, give us clearance.
Yeah. Um, I feel like sometimes when you're getting deeper into your spiritual journey or growth, there's overwhelming feeling sometimes or an ungrounding to incorporate this new knowledge and integrate it to um, the life that you've been living, and it can be quite ungrounding and overwhelming. Are there anything that you do to help you ground yourself?
Will you say that one more time? Because all of your questions I feel are so beautiful and important. They all feel really important. We ask it one more time so I make sure I understand.
Yeah, so even speaking from personal experience, at certain points, it feels like you're almost in the cloud, or I like to think of it as dimensions. And if you spend a lot of time in let's say the upper dimensions, you can kind of feel less grounded to reality or the 3D. Are there things that help you ground yourself and not be overwhelmed and better integrate these two realities?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important question. And I mean, personally, I have different practices that I do. I do yoga. I've practiced yoga for a long time, and sometimes qigong or different practices to to root in. But I think sometimes also it can feel particularly challenging for spiritually inclined people in, let's say, Western society or Western culture to ground and to root, because when so-called third dimension of reality um, is oftentimes saying that the other is not real, it can be difficult for
Yeah,
for the spiritual person to integrate or to want to integrate. It's like, why do I want to
yeah,
integrate into that?
exactly. You're like, why do I want to do that?
You know, it's know,
It's stupid. Yeah.
it's like, but we know, it's like and it is in that it's not anything personal by me saying what I'm about to say, but it's like this talk that this is the real world, it's like the third dimension is the real world. Well, is this the real world, or is this an expression of, or is this the projection of the real world?
Yeah.
Or is this really the real world? Or is this actually the projection of the real world? And if we
Yeah.
actually with the real world, then maybe the projection will become more harmonious. Um,
Mm.
so do you know what I mean? But it's like,
Yeah, I feel like they're all the dimensions are in a way connected. It's just that so what happens in one dimension also happens in all the other dimensions, but each one is unique in how it shows up or how we perceive it in a way. So whatever happens in the whatever fifth dimension, fourth dimension also happens in the third dimension. It's just we perceive it differently because this is more even our eyes are connected to our brain. So you know, it's no telling if I'm seeing the same thing that you're seeing, you know.
yeah, and I mean, I experience you as a very grounded soul. And let's say my friend Natalie, for example, she's really grounded. There's some people that there's a lot of earth energy there, and
Mm,
it's more natural, for the grounding. But the way I believe that future is going to look is the way a lot of um traditional cultures have been, in a sense of the spiritual person or the spirit person or the bridge person, the oracles, all these different people. It's not the way I experience it, it's not one role, there's many. And
mm,
so even a person, let's say, the way that I connect, one of the ways I connect with spirit is kind of going in a full trance mode where, they're coming in and
mm,
it's more of a full trance. When I'm in that role, there would be somebody else known as a gatekeeper,
mm,
because I'm not so much, I'm tethered, yes, to my physical body, but not so much my physical body. There are
mm,
different roles or different ways that um the bridge people express. But yeah, about integration also too, and being able to be grounded in the physical dimension. I think it can be helpful also to connect with other spiritual being or spiritual humans
mm.
that understand that this is real. I feel that in itself can help to root into the physical dimension, um,
Yeah.
because there's a common language, there's a shared reality.
Yeah, because to be honest, I'm not around too many spiritual people on an everyday basis. So sometimes when I'm explaining these concepts to people that don't know what I'm talking about, it's like, what are you? It feels like you're speaking a different language,
And
and it can get a little overwhelming. Um,
And when I experience you, I'm just like, I feel you as like a seasoned, spiritual person. And yeah, I can imagine. And yeah, I feel like you have what I would call, or what the way it comes through is like spiritual fluency, like you're fluent in spiritual understanding. And yeah, I think it can be. And I feel naturally what's happening now, however it is with the astrology, this time of awakening. Aquarius age, however you want to see it, solar flares are happening. There are actual just huge um, astrological sun elements, big elements that are
mm,
transforming human beings. And I believe that's only going to continue. And I believe that um, people bridge in different ways, and it's
yeah,
beautiful. I would say the way I experience you is you're in a beautiful service role, offering this service to the greater human family. I believe it will just continue the soul's awakening, and that you're able to be as earthy and grounded as you are and still hold the fluency that you do is you've got skill, clearly.
I appreciate
You're
that.
very skillful.
I'm still, beginning to trust in that. Um, it took some, healing some things. And you mentioned Bali. I actually went to Bali a month ago or 2 months ago, and I took on a Reiki course, and I'm trying to figure out ways to be of service and help others in a different way. And like I said, I'm not around too many, as of yet, too many spiritual people, which I kind of, see it as an almost a good thing because they're helping me trying to bridge the gap between people who completely are skeptical, or they're maybe more in the logical or left brain thinkers, and it helps me explain things better, um, so that it's more practical for everyone. And that's why I focus on a lot of personal development, self improvement on this show, because I feel like that's the first layer.
Yeah,
These things, most of your blockages are like traumas and limiting beliefs, and doing your inner work, shadow work, energy work. And once you start to peel these layers, you start to get to the next level, which is, I think, your intuition. And once you strengthen that intuition, you start tapping into your other gifts that you are gifted with to help others and to be of service.
yeah, that's
So it helps me like get to people that are on like the initial levels, or maybe kind of, straddling the line, because I feel like they need the most help.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and your understanding is beautiful. And yeah, because what I've seen through the years too, and what I've encouraged people to, anybody that I've supported with in ritual and ceremony through the years, it's been simultaneously a healing journey that, and I've also stayed on my own personal healing journey. I work with a lot of healers through, for as long as I've been practicing, I've been continued working through my own layers, human, ancestral, all of the above, working with healers from different backgrounds, and stayed on that. And I believe it is just like what you're saying, because sometimes when people, they come and they're feeling called to it, my perspective is that if somebody doesn't go and acknowledge their own um, healing process or need for healing, I haven't met a human yet on earth that isn't needing some kind of healing from, let's say, their upbringing, or maybe it's simply a part of the human journey. I literally haven't met a human that is an exception to this. It's possible, I just haven't met them. But so to be able to have access to one's vulnerability and the ways that we've encouraged, and a lot of the focus, I would say the primary focus of my work since 2005 also has been in supporting women to heal and heal our feminine wounds, and what you're speaking about too, like the shadows and everything of things that I've sometimes uh, not everybody wanted to do this, but it's
Yeah.
like we've got to go there. We've got to go there because it's in the space. It's in this space, and if we're not addressing it, then it can come in and seep in into the ways that we're relating to shamanic work or spiritual practices. And so and sometimes, like my friend Natalie that I was referring to earlier, she's um I've heard her say before, like healing is messy. It can be
Mm.
messy. Sometimes as much as I would like it to be not feeling like that. And sometimes it has been like that. It's like, uh, yeah, when you're delving into these spaces, going into these deeper energetics where there has been all of this ancestral trauma, maybe traumas that we've experienced in this lifetime, but we've forgotten. And something just pricks it just right. And then, it's like I'm going like this because it can feel like the animal nature of the human is wanting to attack whatever made it
Mm,
feel like that hurt came from there. Because that's what it can feel like when we have a trigger, when we get triggered, the animal aspect of ourselves, we all have it, I believe, it's just like the primal energy is like, I want to get that thing that hurt me. But it's just, I think a lot more people understand now that we all have triggers, and it's whatever's not healed already. And so many things can prick it. And it's possible to see that also as a blessing, as a gift, as you were saying, everything happens for a reason.
mhm.
And that anything that can feel so intense that, yeah, when we work with the healing enough, it can feel okay. Now in hindsight, I can see that because that happened, uh I have more honesty about the human experience, or um understand that these wounds are deep, or it's not necessarily going to be handled in a
Yeah.
week.
I have to
Or
understand from personal experience, like perspective is a very important thing to learn because sometimes you can get stuck in victim mentality, like why is this always, especially if it's something cyclical that you keep going through. It's like, why does this always happen to me? Or you have these self-deprecating thoughts and victimhood, and all you have to do is shift your perspective into thinking, seeing the positive in everything and seeing that even some of the bad things that you go through, you're going through that so that you can learn how to overcome, whatever challenges that you're going through.
absolutely, yeah, 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 you carry beautiful wisdom. And it reminds me, there was once a time when I had gone through a series of ceremonies. You could call it like a ceremonial tour through the States, and had certain experiences on that journey. And thankfully, I was able to sit with Maladoma on the West Coast in California, have a divination with him, and ask him, with some of these intense experiences that I had, it was like, what in the world was going on, Maladoma? I actually couldn't understand what was going on. And it felt like that. I was like, what is happening? Why is it happening to me? And he was basically saying at that time, the particular experiences that I was having, he was basically saying you could look at it like a diagnostic tool. There's a diagnostic tool that's happening. Here's, let's say, here's the wound, here's the sickness, here's something. And so that you can feel in or sense in or work with the spiritual dimensions to understand what's the healing that's needed, what's a possible cure that could come. It's like, why are we here in support of healing? And yeah, to see that there's particular wounds. And again, it's like a perspective. It was a total shift in perspective to see, wait, you're saying that I had that experience so I could see the healing that's needed? And then the shift in perspective, I was like, oh, okay, now it doesn't feel so crazy.
Yeah. I want to talk about what it means to be a high priestess, and I know you help people through that process. Can you describe what that truly means to hold that title?
Um, I don't, particularly high priestess. I haven't titled myself
Or
priestess.
okay, I thought I saw that on your website.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, because I was like, did I? No,
I thought there was like a course or something that you
it's
teach that was
yeah,
maybe you call it something else. Sorry.
yeah, 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 absolutely. It's a priestess training. Yeah,
Ah,
definitely.
yes, sorry.
Oh yeah, that's okay. Because I was like, did I say high priestess? It's nothing. Yeah, I was just actually trying to like, really, did I say I haven't said that before? But it's a priestess training. It's true. And
Mm.
your friend Natalie, that I think I feel that you two would resonate well. So I'm like, Natalie, she and I are co-facilitating a priestess training. And but what were you saying? Will you say the question again? Sorry.
Um, what does that exactly mean? And um, like, what are the paths to doing that?
Yeah, that's yeah, again, it's a great question. Um, Yeah, okay, so speaking about what I was mentioning before about being in support of, let's say, the healing of the feminine for my path, that it was simply instinctual. I was just there and I was going through my own journey and I continue. And and then supporting the healing of the feminine. I'm a Libra, I'm guided by Venus. There's different aspects that I've just been particularly focused on the feminine through the years. And then once the first time I came to Bali and I was guided to sit with a healer, a spirit priest here, he read my palm and he was essentially seeing, he had a way of saying it was essentially saying like a priestess of the divine. And I just had it conceptualized to myself at that time, maybe I was saying ritual facilitator, ceremony diviner, different ways that I was imagining. But when he said that, it was you know, kind of helped it to become more illuminated or conscious. And so, yeah, what is a priestess, or what is, how does one become a priestess, or is it remembering our roles as priestess? Maybe it's those that are guided to quote unquote like a priestess training, or to being a priestess is maybe it's simply actualizing the priestess that they are inherently. And I'm not on social media so much. I hear that this is becoming more popular, the
Yeah.
priest, the priestess path. Um, and the way I personally relate to the role of priestess is saying, it's tending to the sacred. And what is the sacred? It's like life. I believe life is sacred. Water is sacred. We are water. It's tending to life as sacred. That's the way that I relate to it, and to um yeah, seeing life as sacred, and we are sacred. We as in humans. And just as you were saying, we all have gifts as what if
Mm.
we are supporting the stewarding of humanity, as many souls are guided to do this, a humanity that is um, reverential with each other, that is reverential with life, that is just deeply reverential. Like to hold a baby is to know they're holding something very precious. To hold water in one's hand is to know that we're holding something very precious. To hold our own hand is to know that we are holding something very precious. Precious in a like a deep, genuine kind of feeling sense that, yeah, the ways that we're guiding this particular journey is starting with self, starting with self-love. What is it to honor ourselves as sacred? Do we love ourselves? Can we get really good at sincerely loving ourselves? Like we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't look away. We don't cringe. We don't, it's like, can I really love myself? Look myself in the eyes, not because of anything, just because I love myself. Not
Mm.
because I've had any accomplishments, I look any certain way, I can do some certain thing, just I love myself, you know? So
Mm.
starting with self and going through these different um modules in that particular training. We're going to be gathering in Mexico in December and working with the sacred waters there and the earth, and essentially, I mean, to the essence of it, the distillation of it is to say that we're tending to life as sacred, essentially.
Mm.
and dedicating to that.
Yeah. And I think I feel the shift collectively from where we were maybe 10, 20 years ago with our, with spirituality is seen as this woo-woo thing. And then now even the scientific world is helping explain some of the things that used to be so abstract, even the idea of quantum physics. And we've mentioned water a couple of times, just the multifaceted element of water that can, we've seen how it can be programmed. You can speak to it and it will literally um, be programmed and change based on what you're speaking to it. And we're mostly water. So, it just having all these different facets and industries, they're starting to connect to the same knowledge so that, it's not just in the spiritual. You can explain things for a person in a scientific way if you want, or in whatever form you can understand it, even psychology or I'm seeing the interconnectedness of all of it, and it's helping us all kind of shift into this new paradigm.
Yeah, I'm smiling for many reasons. I'm also smiling because I experience you as such a seer. But yeah, yeah, I feel that, and I get excited about that also. Is the like the quantum physics? I listen to a lot of the quantum physics because it's the other side of my brain too. What would that
Mm.
be? Left brain that is like, okay, let me hear this again.
I like to recognize patterns. And,
Yeah.
when you see patterns, it's like puzzle pieces that, sometimes it takes a while for those puzzle pieces to come through. But when I see a pattern, that just better solidifies a concept for me. And even years ago, I I looked into people that had near death experience, and then also people who have taken a lot of mushroom, and and I see the interconnectedness. They were all reporting the same thing. Um, and that kind of helps you solidify, like, certain concepts that can feel so abstract, because a lot of spiritual things, it's until you get to a certain point, it is believing in the unseen until you can see. And over time, as you release fears and all of these things blocking you from seeing or even seeking, because once you start asking the questions, the universe will reveal the answers to you as long as you are open and seeking answers. So it's these seeing these patterns help me understand or even believe, strengthen my faith in all of these concepts.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I find that really helpful too. And I found myself feeling called to listen to a lot of, I guess people refer to it as NDEs or the near death experiencers. I found myself really drawn to that, especially maybe 4 years ago, especially and listening and listening and listening. So it's for me, it was like a touchstone of wait, okay, what is this again? What is this again? Even though I had been working with the different realms and it was kind of like touching, continuously touching back into source. Okay, okay, yeah. Just with so um with so much changing in the physical world, with so many realities crumbling and people like with whatever the reality structures were, there's collective reality structures. That's what I find in traveling around the world is there are, I will call them reality structures. We could say architecture. And um yeah, and I feel, yeah, the quantum physics and let's say like Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and a
Mm.
lot of a lot of other people, I practice those meditations daily, and um and I feel for me, the ultimate potential is in really, really discovering what the human being potential with all of our guides and guardians. That's what I'm kind of steadily working on is it's not simply the connection with them now, it's they're saying, okay, now continue to develop yourself and you're exploring your potential and seeing again what you're saying, how it all connects. And I feel those different, yeah, the quantum physics especially is showing, like demonstrating the like the language of the mystics, you know, which is is so helpful for right now, because we have been so conditioned in more modern times to be so linear, logical, rational. And so
Yeah.
for something to be accepted, it's got to get past that gate. It's got to get past that gatekeeper.
Yeah.
It's like, explain to me how this is true.
Yeah.
First, it must be explainable.
Yeah. Even the whole concept of we're a multiverse and even the concept of time. And I feel like time is different in different dimensions or realities, whatever you want to call it. And it's not so linear. I feel like I don't know, in my thinking, there's layers, right? And I feel like in the third dimension, we think of time as a linear thing. And in the higher dimension where your higher self sits, the past, present, and future is all, it's not linear, it's all present. And that is why it's important to connect to your higher self because it can see the past, present, and future. It kind of has a better guiding system so that you can guide yourself in a better way because it knows everything
Yeah,
and
yeah.
is better connected.
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful. And when you were speaking about that, also, it was reminding me of, again, like ceremony or ritual, which can be as simple as um, this, what you're speaking about of getting, you know, moving beyond the third dimension. So as I was saying, I just felt called earlier, it can be as simple as there's something that's rhythmic and it puts our brain wave state into a different state where we're not experiencing ourselves as separate from, like, I'm not separate from Luam, I'm not separate from you, that we can connect with what is also referred to as like the unified field of consciousness or fifth
Yeah.
dimension or something like that. And we're connecting in this way through some kind of repetitive, it's almost like a hypnotic state, which allows us to enter into, let's say, the higher realms of consciousness, and as you were saying, outside of linear time, and then where we can enter into those waters, let's say, um as creatives, and say, okay, what is it that I'm wanting to create now, you know, whatever that is, and just imagining it. So sometimes people are going into the quantum or these realms, you know, through meditation, and their heart and their brain are going into strong coherence. And there's other ways that our heart and our, you know, brain can go into coherence rhythmically, musically, and going into that space. And let's say this is speaking perhaps to those listening and saying, you know, maybe there's an expression of you that you're wanting to experience that hasn't come into the physical world yet, and maybe that's artistic, let's say, for example. And so as you're going into that space, and as I mentioned before, I always like to come bearing fruit,
Mm.
being an offering, you know, coming as a generous being. Here I'm putting some flowers for the divine or something, and I'm
Mhm.
connecting with that realm and seeing myself as an artist, and she's living, and you know, whatever exactly that person is wanting to create, that um yeah, that we can continue to remember ourselves as creatives. And that whole idea of like collapsing time and space is that the realm, as I experience it, the realm of ceremony and ritual is outside of space and time, where it can feel like being in a ceremony, even if it's technically an hour, can feel like a whole year just went by. How did that just
Yeah.
happen?
And it helps you have compassion for everyone, seeing that there is no separation. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. And for me, how that concept even further like intensifies, it's helps you see that there is no separation. One things that I've been good at in the third dimension is therapy and being that helping people. I'm not a trained professional, but I've always been that, person that people go to. And as I go through my spiritual growth, I feel like energies are coming to me or connecting to me for the same purpose. And I find that I can provide healing in that way as being, you know, giving therapy or just a lending ear to those energies that I'm connecting with.
That's
And that shows up in that person, even though if they're not connected to their higher self, it still shows up. I see the difference because everything that happens in one dimension also happens in the other, like as above, so below. So I immediately see a change in that person, whether they're spiritually or connected to their higher self. I see the change reflecting in this dimension. So it's kind of interesting to see that connection.
well, yeah, I feel like it's even more than interesting. That's pretty awesome what you're doing.
I can't really, I've explained it to a couple of people and they didn't quite get what I was talking about. So it's kind of nice to be able to talk to someone that, because this is one of the things that I do that is just like, all right, I can't really talk about it and have people understand what that means. But, I've always been interested in psychology and how figuring out how people work, why they do the things that they do. Since I was a kid, I was reading psychology books. And so how that showed up as I started going through this growth is like I said, it's just you start, seeing, feeling, hearing different energies. And I still don't know why certain people, get connected in that way where they can access my energy. But when they do, it's just kind of helping them through whatever. And that might not even be their intentions to connect, but it's like somehow their higher self knows that I'm you know, I can help them through that.
Wow.
And I never really talked to some of these people in the 3D, telling them that experience I've had with their energy and giving this healing and therapy and all of that. So it's kind of like one of those things that I do that never really got to talk about it or tell the person that this happened with.
I feel honored that you're sharing it and thank you so much. And yeah, it feels like while you're talking about an experience, I'm reminded of the multidimensionality of the soul. And
Mhm.
as you said too, that we're all so connected. And I don't know if you're experiencing this as well, but I'm experiencing increasingly so what could be referred to as telepathy, hear,
Yes.
hearing somebody and and hear not that they're trying to talk to me, but I'm hearing
Hmm.
and and feeling them and experiencing them. And then
Yeah.
what you speak about too, like the validation, it gets validated when I talk to them in the so-called third dimension and I hear what they're saying. And then I think to myself, yeah, that's exactly what I was hearing them talk about.
Yeah. It over time, that the telepathy is a great reminder that there is no separation because I felt like whether I'm in a different continent or country, not even talking to a person, there is somewhat a telepathic communication where you can hear, feel whatever your gifts are and see. You can over time it develops into discerning, even if you can't see and you can only hear at some point or feel. Over time it develops into, helping you discern which energy is what, or who is the person you're connecting to telepathically. And over time it develops to hearing, feeling, and seeing. So it gets stronger, and then you know who you're connecting to.
Can I ask you a question that may seem like a random question?
Yeah, sure.
Have you ever been to Greece?
Yes, it's one of my favorite places in the world.
Yeah.
I've been to Athens, Santorini a couple of times. I actually got married in Santorini, and Naxos and Milos Island is my favorite.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like your soul is so connected to Greece. That's what I was feeling.
Hmm.
And this is what I experience when somebody is you have such a beautiful way of like sharing your genuine essence. And as I don't know if maybe you experience this as well, when somebody expresses their genuine essence, it's almost like it's easier to understand their like the greater aspects of their soul or something, or it just starts to bring in visions. And I was feeling, sensing these like Grecian waters or something, and this, the divine feminine also.
Hmm. I appreciate that. And
Yeah,
it's been really nice to talk to someone that I feel like understands me and speaking the same
thanks.
language.
You're amazing. Yeah.
Oh. Well, love, it's been a lovely conversation. I really appreciate you for stopping by the podcast and sharing all your wisdom. Before we close it out, is there anything you want to leave the listeners with?
Mm, yeah, I mean, yeah, what I would love to leave the listeners with is a message to please believe in yourself, believe in your hopes and your dreams and your most beautiful dreams and visions and aspirations, because I do believe that's the higher soul giving glimpses into the future. And yeah, we believe in you, and yeah, we encourage you to believe in that.
Thank you for that. And for the listeners, I'll have Liv's information in the description. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Luam. It's
Thank you.
to connect.